Hey guys, this is heyybritny and welcome back to my channel. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about Candace and her lawsuit with the Macrons. So let's get into it. I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about what this whole conversation is about. At the start of it, we know that it's about proving whether or not Brigette Macron is a biological male, but there's also some other interesting things happening here. One is about transgenderism, and then it's also about pedophilia, and then also age gap relationships. So my stance on pedophilia is that no child should be groomed and no child should be forced to engage in sexual acts with an adult. I also want to make it clear that the foundation of Candace's claims in her documentary, that's actually based on work that other people had already started working on prior to Candace's involvement with this whole situation. So it's not like she just was bored and then started digging and then just came up with this book, with this whole documentary and stuff like that. This was really based on work that other people had done and had done the research on, had verified different things and all of that stuff. And then Candace got wind of it and she became really interested and invested in the series. And she basically just brought more attention to the whole conversation. But this was something that was happening regardless of whether or not she was involved. This was going to be a conversation. Now, transgenderism. I do not care if Brigette Macron is trans, if she was born a biological male. What I care more about is what the implications mean if she is a biological male, and I can dig into that a little bit more. So first, let's just start with the obvious. We can obviously see just by looking at the Macrons that there is a age difference. We can also see how Brigette Macron looks. So in terms of the age gap, Emmanuel Macron is 47 years old. Brigette Macron is 73 years old, I believe, so she's significantly older than him. Then we have the issue of Brigette's looks. So she is from France, completely different country, so she is not going to fit the American standards of beauty for women. In addition, we know that women are criticized for how they look, regardless of what industry they're in, what they do, whether they're a celebrity or not. So we know that there's always going to be talks about how women look. So in Brigette's case, one, he does not fit the American standard of beauty. Two, she does have an interesting look, and I'll just leave that there. You can look at pictures and videos of her to make your own determination on if you think that she is a man or a woman biologically. Now, pedophilia and age gap. So I think in the US, most people would say that the age of consent for a child, or the age of when a child is considered an adult, would be 18. I know that back in the day that was not always the case, and in some states there's different ages, so 16, 17, 18, so around that. But I think that most people would agree that 18 is when a child is considered an adult. So with the Macrons, they are said to have met when he was between the ages of 14 and 17. Either way you slice it, that is under 18, and he is a child in my book. And where I think this becomes problematic is that I think a lot of people, because they're looking at the Macrons in their much older ages now, he's 47 and she's 72 or 73, what we are actually looking at is we are going back in time to when they first met. If he was between 14 and 17 and she was 39 to 40 when they met, this would have been a clear instance of a teacher taking advantage of a student. As a teacher, you are supposed to teach your students, mentor them, and protect them while they are in the school institution. You should not be sleeping with your students, especially if they are under the age of 18. So I think that this is something that people lose track of because so much time has passed, and we are looking at the Macrons as they are much older now. And so when you look back, you're like, oh, well, you know, that was so long ago, it doesn't really matter. But it does matter because that sort of thing is still happening. So let's get into the reasons why this whole conversation matters. Now, let's think of a transgendered woman that we all know, Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner is, we obviously know that is Bruce Jenner. There's a clear record of Bruce Jenner. We have pictures, we have videos, we have documented evidence of Bruce Jenner being an Olympian. We also have documented evidence of Bruce Jenner transitioning into Caitlyn Jenner. We know that Bruce Jenner and Caitlyn Jenner are the same person. Now, imagine if someone told you those were two different people. Imagine someone told you that Caitlyn Jenner was Bruce Jenner's sister. That would complicate things, wouldn't it? Now, imagine that Bruce Jenner's sister, Caitlyn Jenner, has no photographic evidence or very little evidence. She only has photos of herself after a certain age. We don't see anything before. Now imagine you can find very little on Bruce Jenner, despite how well documented I just said that he is. Imagine that somebody went to the efforts of eliminating, erasing, and reducing Bruce Jenner's presence and his impact on our world. As an Olympian, we have no record of his Olympic wins. As a father, we have no records, no pictures of him with his family, or very little pictures, and we have no photographic evidence of him on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. He's just gone from the picture. Now imagine that a small group of people know that Bruce Jenner and Caitlyn Jenner are the same person, but the rest of the world, everyone else, thinks these are two separate people. This is definitely problematic, and this is the real issue that is at play here. To give you another example, let's talk about Mrs. Doubtfire. So we know that in Mrs. Doubtfire, the father, I cannot recall his name, but this is the character that Robin Williams played. He is not able to see his kids, they're going through a divorce, whatever, so he dresses up as a much older nanny so that he can get access to his kids. He can see his kids when his wife is not around. And I don't recall all of the details, but there is a scene where he is at dinner with his family, and I believe he has two different dinners on the same night. And so he's going back and forth between the husband, the father, and Mrs. Doubtfire. And there's one point where he gets to the table and his mask, basically, his disguise is falling off. And you can see the shock that the wife had, that the family had, when they realize that Mrs. Doubtfire and the ex-husband, the father, are the same person. This is a violation of trust because you are talking to one person thinking that they are somebody else about this other person, and then now you're realizing that you were talking to the same person the whole time. This is a huge breach of trust and one's personal boundary. So imagine doing that to a whole country, to a whole world. We can see in Mrs. Doubtfire the family's shock and the family's betrayal that they are feeling against the father for doing this. Now imagine that on a much wider scale. Imagine that happening to an entire country, to the entire world. Now, why is this problematic? Because really, for me, this enters 1984 territory. This is erasing history, erasing a truth, a history, a narrative, the actual way that things happen, and then creating a new narrative and expecting people, forcing people to believe that narrative. And when people realize, hey, this is not the truth, this is not what actually happened, getting mad at them for pointing that out. What this speaks to is we could potentially be dealing with two different people, Jean-Michel Tregonwell and Brigette Macron. Are these two people, or are they one and the same? This matters if they are the same because, one, there's that sense of betrayal and distrust. Additionally, we are speaking potentially of government corruption because of the fact that they went to great lengths to cover this up, to ensure that everyone believed that these were two separate people, when in fact they may possibly be the same person. In addition, we must consider the fact that this is very political. If we have a figure in power who is able to erase their history, pretend that they are someone else, this creates a lot of problems because then you start to question when else this happened, what other powerful figures have done this. Now, for Americans, let's put this into perspective. There was a person in the late 1990s, Mary Kay L. I cannot pronounce her last name. She was engaged with her student, a 13-year-old boy. She later married that boy and had children with him. To make my point, imagine that Mary Kay becomes the First Lady of America. Now, if this is your first lady, what does that say about your country? You know that this person was actively engaged with the underage student, and yet you propelled her to the highest office of your country, the highest position of your country. What does that say about your country? What does that say about your country that this person is in charge when you already know that they possibly have corrupt morals, corrupt values, and they may be operating with an entirely different belief system than you? This is where it all becomes problematic, and this is why we are talking about the Brigette Macron case. This is not an issue merely of outing whether or not someone is trans. I personally do not care if she's trans. She can live her life however she wants. But what I care about is the implications if she is a man, because then that digs into the whole government cover-up, corruption, and all of that stuff, in addition to pedophilia, because this would have been an underage person that she was involved with. And so I think that is the crux of the issue, and it's very easy to lose sight of that and think that, hey, this is just a trans issue, this is just an issue of outing someone who is trans and kind of overstepping your boundaries and taking it upon yourself to expose someone when it's not really your place. But that's not really the core issue of what is happening here. The core issue is pedophilia, and then also potentially government cover-up and government corruption. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this video. I'm not sure what you guys are thinking about everything that I've said in this video, but hopefully I've simplified it for you so that you can understand what is actually happening in this case. If you do not agree, that is totally fine, but definitely leave your comments in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.